Well, hello everyone. Welcome to Winning Ways on this cold Monday. I hope everyone is doing well, doing fine. All righty. And yes, we did have technical difficulties, but I'm grateful to hear that there were people looking out for it, looking out for Winning Ways tonight. Well, thank you for joining us. If you're new to Winning Ways, I am your host, Stephannie Solomon. And I've been podcasting since 2010, and I'm over here on YouTube trying to reestablish a community and make it happen. And basically, people ask, so what is your platform about, blah, blah. I teach from my books. I am an author, and there's always something to talk about from topics to talk about from my books. And periodically, I do have guests on to talk about various topics and subjects that are relatable and are in alignment to my writing. So feel free to send your comments in. I see some of them are popping up. And I do need you to do this for those of you who are welcome. Those of you who are joining us on the YouTube end, I need you to hit the subscribe button, that share button, and that like, and that's how the community grows. And again, thank you. Well, I want to welcome my guest tonight. She is an author, and you know what? We don't have your name up, Joyce. We did before. Your name is not appearing. Is there a way that you can click that, Joyce? No, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. See over here with what's been happening. No, don't worry about it. Okay, but it's showing up on my end. Her name is Joyce Smith. I met Joyce, I think back in it must have been maybe 2017, maybe. And we were both at an event as authors, vending. And I meet a lot of my guests at different events. And I met Joyce and we exchanged information about our books. And I was very intrigued by her books because, first of all, they're novels. And I think that anyone who writes a novel, that takes a different type of writing style, a different type of mindset. And I'm just very impressed that Joyce has written 2 novels. Cuts Like a Knife and Cuts to the Soul. And I don't want to talk too much about her writing, but I'm excited because it deals with community in a special city that we both share, and that is Baltimore. Welcome, Joyce.
Well, thank you. And first of all, Stephannie, I have to really give you praise because we've been working, trying to get everything straightened out. And somebody else would have just thrown up their hands, but not Stephannie. Stephannie said, we're going to do this somehow or another.
We can make it happen.
And she did.
Thank you.
Because believe me, I am technically challenged. So I was no help at all.
Oh, my goodness.
That she stayed with me. And I'm appreciative to the people who have been calling me and saying, when are you starting? Where's the podcast? Come on.
Yes.
We are here.
Yes, we are here. Yes, we're going live. And technology, the way technology moves these days is amazing. It's a major invention, but not perfect. Things happen, glitches happen. I'm podcasting somewhere different from where I normally podcast. So I'm dealing with someone else's internet. I'm dealing with someone else's lighting. But it is what it is. But other things just happen. And trust me, I have been in situations where things really went more awry than this.
I can't imagine.
I have to laugh about it. But, we have a comment from a Mr. Charles Turner. He's on the Facebook side, and he says that Cuts Like a Knife was a great book to read.
Oh.
Yes.
Well,
yes. That's so good to hear. What made you want to write a novel? Because that's a whole different type of subgenre for writing? What made you want to write a novel?
Well, I have a vivid imagination, and I've always had one, even as a child. But I wanted to write about Baltimore City
Mm,
because that's my heart. And I don't live in Baltimore City now. I live in Baltimore County, but it's almost the same. And that's where my heart is. And I saw things happening that really touched me. I worked in the police department, the state's attorney's office for 13 years, and then I worked in federal court for 27 years. And the things I saw in federal court were heartbreaking. Um, I wrote this book around the time when everyone was supposed to be getting tough on crime, but really what
mm,
they were doing was getting tough on the Black community, in my opinion.
mm,
And
mhm,
so I told the story, or I attempted to tell a story, my first book, from the perspective of people who lived in the community and what they had to go through. It's one thing when you see a little tidbit on the news and then you're off to something else. But people who lived in the community that I wrote about, theirs was not a tidbit, theirs was real life. The other thing is that now it's Black History Month.
mhm.
And the things that were relevant when I wrote this book, Cuts Like a Knife, the first book, are relevant now. They haven't changed. Some things have gotten a little better, but not much. And so that book was my heart. And then the second book I wrote was Cuts to the Soul. That book is about family dynamics. It's the same people, but you don't have to have read the first book to understand the second book. To read, it's almost like a standalone. However, most people who read the second book say, you know what, I want to go back and see what these people were doing in the first book. So,
Well, that's
um,
awesome because you have another loyal reader, Karen Brown, who says that it was a wonderful novel, and
well,
it
thank you, Karen.
yeah, said it kept her interested, and she couldn't put it down.
Well, that's the kind of stuff you want
Awesome.
to hear.
Wow, and then you have Charles. Charles Turner says he's ready for your third book. Uh-oh.
Okay.
This is wonderful. This is wonderful. And I was going to ask you about that Baltimore connection. So you saw a lot working with the police department and
And
working with
and federal
attorneys.
court.
Hmm.
Yes,
You
I
saw a
did.
lot. So all of that impacted your view, your perception of everything. And I'm sure that's relatable. That's so relatable. So it's I wouldn't say urban centric so much, but or what would you say? Would that be a
I
correct way of putting it?
I didn't think of my book as urban books.
Okay.
Um, I just thought of the books about people, general everyday people. And
Mm-hmm.
as you read the books, you can find a character or someone in the book that you identify with. It's surprising. People have told me, you know, uh, this character is just like my cousin. That character is just like my aunt, you know?
Yeah,
And
sure.
because the bottom line is people are people.
Yeah,
I don't care where you come from or where you've been, there's always some common ground between us. Especially
absolutely.
now and what's going on, it's hard to believe that there's common ground, but there really is. You know, we all basically
Yeah.
want the same things.
Yeah. And what stood out to me were or was the scenery in Baltimore. And your
Right.
first book, particularly, Cuts Like a Knife, it takes place in West Baltimore. Am I right? West
Yes,
Side.
yes,
Uh,
yes. I'm a West
Lafayette.
Side girl. I'm
Yeah,
sorry
West
about
Side.
that East Side.
Okay, I'm South Side, Cherry Hill, South Side. That I never was good. I grew up there, but that's not me. I'm not even gonna pretend. But definitely South Baltimore. But I remember I was in, I think I was in 10th grade when I was in that Lafayette Square area. I went with some friends. I think I shared that with you earlier. I went with some friends who were supposed to be majorettes in a parade thing, and they were all supposed to meet. And myself and some other friends went with them. And I was amazed by the beauty of the place and the churches on all the corners.
Right.
And it was
Right.
a beautiful look. So when I saw that, and I don't want to give too much away here, but I saw that one of the stories takes place there. I really like the fact that you used an actual location. This wasn't made up.
No. And let
Yeah,
me
we have
say
huh?
about Lafayette Square, and like you say, it's the churches around it. I think it's St. James Episcopal Church. That is the second largest Black African American Episcopal church in the country. A lot of people don't know that. That
Oh,
church
that's
was founded in 1824,
wow.
and it's still vibrant in the community today. So, we have a lot of history, and
Yeah.
I think a lot of people don't even know the history that we have. My
Oh, I
grandmother
didn't know.
lived on Lafayette Avenue for 60 years.
Mhm.
And back when we were growing up, Lafayette Avenue was like a prime place to live. You had
Yeah.
doctors, you had lawyers. My uncle was a school teacher. You had principals, but everybody was right there together. You know,
Mhm.
the people on the corner that did janitorial work lived right across the street from the doctors and the lawyers and the
Mm.
principals. And that's hard to
All of
believe
that
today.
history. All of
That's
that
hard to
history.
believe.
Yeah, I mean, and the fact that you mentioned about the church, I'm assuming that that's a historical landmark that probably cannot even be um, refaced or anything like that. They probably can't do any kind of construction on it or limited construction on it.
Well, all I can tell you is it's still viable today. It has a strong
Wow.
congregation, it's strong in the community, and that's not the only church. There's St. John's, which is across the street.
Hmm.
Emmanuel used to be on the corner, but they got sold, so I'm not sure what the name is now. If you go a block away, you have Macedonia, which is still,
Yeah.
yeah, a lot of people know
Yes.
about that church. So the history
Yes.
is there. We have a
Yeah.
lot to be proud of.
Yeah.
It's not just crime and
Yeah.
drugs. We have a lot to be proud of.
Like
But
I said, when I first saw that area, it was beautiful. It was a lot of greenery.
mhm,
It wasn't this asphalt jungle. It was literally greenery. And I just remember sitting on the bench looking around at the beauty of it all.
and it's still beautiful. It
Mhm.
really
And that was
is. It's
in the
still
70s. That was like in the mid 70s,
right.
Yeah.
Uh,
That's a lot of
yeah.
history. You have someone saying a lot of Black history came out of Sandtown. And
Yes.
you have, is this Andrew? I'm sorry, I don't want to get the names mixed up, but you have
Andre.
someone, Andre, who says he loved reading both of your books. Are there any more historical pieces that you put in your book other than the West Side location? Are there any other locations or buildings or what have you that you incorporated in your writing?
Well, I talked a little about East Baltimore, but
Okay,
I don't know as much about East Baltimore as I did West Baltimore. And you
gotcha.
try to write about even though it's a novel, I still want to be factual and say
Yeah.
to talk about things that I know. But East Baltimore, I know, has just as strong of ties and historical importance in the Baltimore City as West Baltimore, as Northwest, as any place you go in Baltimore, you can find history and historical purposes.
That's awesome, awesome. And I like what you said too about the books. Someone said they're ready for your third one, and you said you don't have to read the first one before reading the second one. So they're not sequels, basically.
No, no, they're not. they're connected in that they're the same, a lot of the same characters.
Mm-hmm.
But when you read the second book, you can just go from the second book and you still know everything that's going on. I didn't want to have to set people up or force somebody to read the first one in order to read the second one. But it worked out anyway because most people who read the second one first went back and read the first one, you know? Because the first one is about community and some of the hardships that people in this family, the Wallace family, Asia is my main character. The first book was about what is going on in the community at that time, and they had a devastating loss. I kind of like don't want to tell you everything about that,
Please
but
don't. Please don't. Please don't. I was like, no, she's giving away too much.
the
Please don't. But
second
I will
book,
say, okay, but I do notice too, you incorporate the history and you incorporate, I guess this is your knowledge as a police officer and working with law and officials of the city, but you incorporated gun violence, which is a
yes,
major issue in Baltimore.
a major.
How do yeah, was that something close to your heart as a citizen, or because of your work in the police department, seeing the the results of gun violence and what it does to people in the
What
community?
I would have to say both. The gun violence has hurt just about everyone in this city. You know, whether it's
Mm-hmm.
a relative, it's somebody you know, somebody you care about, somebody that knows somebody. No one has been immune. The other
Mm-hmm.
thing that was prevalent, especially in the first book, was how the city has become almost like a boarded up horror. You go from one block to another block, and where you had beautiful homes, and we still have beautiful architecture, where you had
Yes.
these beautiful homes, most of them are boarded up and no one's doing anything. Well, I shouldn't say that. It's easy to criticize. It doesn't appear that as much is being done as could be done. I mean, it's getting better a little bit depending on your perspective, but we still have too many boarded up properties. And you
Mm-hmm.
can't have a vibrant community when half of it's boarded up. So,
Yeah.
you know, that was the other problem that I addressed in the book. Uncle Mike is one of the main characters in my first book, and he moved into the community back in the 70s. He moved in with his GI Bill. So the story is set in 96. He had a very hard time with the changes that he has seen over the years after having moved into that, you know, that property at such an early time. So
Mm-hmm.
that was kind of addressed as well. The other thing that I really addressed, and I don't know if anybody will remember that, I'm dating myself when I tell you this, but there was a time, especially on Lafayette Avenue, where every Saturday morning, unless it was raining, you got out, you scrubbed the steps, you
Yeah.
polished the rails, you
The
swept the
marble
paint,
steps.
you know,
Yeah.
without fail. And so
Yes.
I
Yeah.
remember being somewhere and at a book, and I was talking about this, and it was some young people in the um, audience, and they looked at me like I was crazy. They were like, "What in the world is she talking about? You got up every Saturday morning and you scrubbed the steps and you pop." We don't even have the rails. We had brass rails then. We don't have them anymore. And that it's a small thing, but it's a big thing in
The big
that people over 30 don't know what you're talking about.
It separated us. As a former teacher, when I taught elementary school students in Baltimore City, there was the curriculum at that time. We had to teach city history,
Okay.
and I can remember doing slideshows with those old projectors, and Of course, we talked about Fells Point, we talked about the Shot Tower, but you know what was included in that history? What
What's
made
that?
Baltimore separate from every city in this country? The marble steps and the
Yes,
cleaning of the marble steps.
marble
You will
steps.
not find them. And so you talk about the architecture also, the 3 floors of how going upward, those high ceilings, the design of the homes, the row homes. When I went to college and made friends, they were always, and they came from other states, particularly the tri-states. They always talked about our row homes, how
Mm-hmm.
that was just amazing to them to see our row homes. You have some comments here too. One from Carol. And Carol Harmon says, one would say that Baltimore is built on communities with great historical architecture and family histories. I will be looking forward to reading the books.
Oh,
And
thank you very
Karen,
much.
yeah, and Karen Brown writes, as a member of the federal courts in West Baltimore, I could connect with the characters and members of the criminal justice community. That is absolutely awesome how your
Right.
work is so relatable. How long did it take you to complete each book,
Okay,
each
now
manuscript?
the first book was tough because I had
Mm-hmm.
never written before. I didn't go
Mm-hmm.
to school to be an author. So I had to teach myself a lot of things. I also self-published, so I had a lot to teach myself about even publishing, a lot to teach myself about grammar. So the first book was time consuming. That took, believe it or not, 5 years. The
Mm-hmm.
second book,
It's understandable.
I just pushed that baby right out. The second book was much easier in
Yeah.
that I had done the work on the first book.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the second book kind of, even though the first book has a special place in my heart, the second book does as well. Because as similar as they are, they're different. When you're dealing with family dynamics, you really can get into a lot with what people understand. I mean, that goes back to Cain and Abel. Family dynamics has been something to deal with forever. So,
Yes, tell me about it. As a life coach, for some of you may not know that although I'm an author as well, and I'm also a life coach, and my niches are family dynamics and forgiveness. And so I've seen, you know, all of my life issues in families. And there are things that many people don't like to talk about because it makes them uncomfortable. But
hmm
us not talking about it doesn't make it go away, the reality. And I'm sure you saw a lot with family dynamics, even the court system.
oh, I did. I
You
did.
know, it's very real. Family dynamics is vast, it's real, and as you said, it goes way back. It's not rare. And
Right.
yeah, it's a big problem, and we over sometimes we under not over, but we um, underrate the significance of how family dynamics impacts even community. Families make
Absolutely.
communities. Families make communities. And when families, and that's a whole nother show about brokenness and all of that,
Right.
healthy families make communities. And when the family dynamics is dysfunctional, that really impacts community. It really does. What would you recommend to someone? Because I often hear this um, as an author as well, how to get started. For those of you who are listening, often I have people who want to be on the show. And one of the things that I say is my show is based off of my writings. The show was
hmm
started because of my writing. So I will never vie away from that. That's a whole nother podcast. But everything that we talk about, even though you are not talking about your book, there's always a basis where I can refer to from my writings. And so there's a chapter in my second book that's called Fresh Start, False Start. And oftentimes people have a very difficult time just getting started. And then
Right.
sometimes we get started and things don't go well, like you were talking about earlier, how getting the show together, you know, it would have been so much easier to say, hey, let's just drop this
Scrap
and
this.
yes, and another day or whatever. But no, we're going to push through. We're going to make this happen. We didn't plan for nothing. Okay. So that being said, remember I told you I was in a different environment.
Uh,
That being said, fresh start, false start. What encouragement, what direction can you give to someone who wants to write? Period. Doesn't have to be a novel, and they're having a difficult time getting started. And there's maybe someone who got started, and then the reality is it was overwhelming, and they stopped. And so now
well,
they are discouraged because they stopped. What do you say to all of that?
well, I say you need people to encourage and help you, and I
Mhm.
highly recommend the Black Writers Guild. And that's not saying that because you're not black you can't go there, but the Black Writers Guild was really instrumental in encouraging me because I met people and I met people that could help me and met people who would encourage me. I met a woman named Dorothy Morrison that, I mean, she really was an encouragement. Another woman, Stella Adams, and they both have their own books. And we all encourage each other. And we're all writing nonfiction. We're all novelists, but we still, there's no jealousy there, as I'm doing right now. There's no jealousy there. We encourage each other. We tell other people about these people, and that you build a community, and
Yeah.
people encourage each other. And like I say, it's no jealousy. It's just what can I do to help you? And
Awesome.
so that's what worked for me,
Building a good
is having
tribe.
that support system.
Yes, yes, yes. A tribe is really necessary. Even, and sometimes we have to go out of our comfort zone to find the tribe.
Oh, I
Oftentimes,
have to say hi to Joanne. Yeah,
yeah,
she just
Joanne, yeah, she did. She mentioned that she just purchased the book on Amazon.
right. Thank you,
Right.
Joanne.
I love these shout outs. I really do. I really do. Yeah, there are people who really want to get started and I think oftentimes people are looking in the wrong places, and it's great if you do have a great support system with your family and your friends and people you grew up with. But we have to understand also that people don't always, they may want the best for us, but they don't always
Hmm.
have the resources or direction for us. And we have to come out of our comfort zone and place ourselves in spaces where the very things that we want reside. There's a commercial that's put out where the money resides, where the guy was talking about where the money resides. But people have to move in spaces where the thing that we want resides, and I think that can help with people who are having a false start, you know,
Right.
and even having multiple failures is even good for growth, really good for
And
growth.
also, I have to give a shout out to my husband, my son, my
Ooh, right
friends,
now, okay.
because when you're in your office and you're away from everyone else,
Mm,
and you're doing your work, you're taken away from family time. So
mm,
you have to have their support and their patience. So
yeah,
you can't you can't do it on your own. You really
yeah,
can't. You need people. You
yeah,
need people in your corner. Uh,
absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. I love how you kept pushing. I love your writing style. You're just very
Thank
relatable.
you.
Yeah, very relatable. And as we heard in the podcast, we pull so many things from it. Your work in the police department, the history of the city. There's so much to talk about, the family dynamics. There's just so much to pull from this. I just want to thank you for taking time out of your busy
Thank
schedule and just coming on and wanting to share with individuals, you know, your babies, because I know that's what they are. Before we leave, why did you call them cut like? Because they both begin with cuts, cuts to the soul, cut like a knife. Without giving away too much of your book, what was cutting? Is it emotional? What was cutting?
Pain, pain. When you experience deep, deep pain, as some of my characters did, and in both books, when
Mm-hmm.
it cuts you, it really cuts you. And so that's where it came from. It came from the pain that my characters experienced. But it's not just about, that's where that came from. But I also want to let you know that there is redemption at the end,
Oh,
because they overcame
yeah.
all the conflicts that they had. They overcame. So it's redemption there in the
I
book
love
as
it.
well.
Yeah, yeah, you talked about faith. You incorporated faith in your character. And you're talking about redemption. Which is giving hope. We
You're
talk
right.
about we're talking about the gun violence and the bad name that Baltimore gets because of crime. But I love how you brought in those positive pieces. The
Thank you.
redemption, the faith, and the hope. I think it was Charles says, this was an excellent interview. I'll be watching more. I'll be watching more. And Carol says, great questions, great response. Yeah, you're a great guest. No doubt about it. But
Thank you.
one, I noticed in you dedicated I think it was your second book. Yeah, your
Mhm.
second book, and you mentioned your husband and your family too, and I think it was your first one. And your second one, you dedicated it to your grandmother and your mother. Um, I dedicated my first book to my mother. The dedication of a book or whatever you write, it's important. It speaks to your heart about something. Of all the people that why did you choose to dedicate your book to those two individuals?
Because they were the two most prominent people in my life, my mother and my grandmother. And I'm going to start with my grandmother, because she came up in a time when things weren't easy for Black women. I mean, she did domestic work, but she only went to the 8th grade, but she was the wisest, smartest woman I've ever met. I mean, I've sat down with people with PhDs that didn't have half the sense or character that she had.
Mm.
And the same thing with my mother. She had 5 children, and she gave what she could and what she thought they needed to each one. So I dedicated it to them because they were the two strongest people in my life.
Awesome, awesome. Joyce, this has been great. I'm glad you hung in there. This was great. It
I
was
thought
not
you were going to throw me out.
no, no, wouldn't do that. Your work is too important, and people need to know that there are Black authors out there, Black female authors out there, because they need to be more of us. More of us. There need to be options, especially in this day and age where there are individuals who want to curtail the evidence, the facts of our history as a people.
Right.
And so during Black History Month, I give you a shout out for being a great author, a great writer. I look forward to more writings.
Thank
And
you.
I just thank you for saying yes. Can people find you on social media? Do you have a website or anything like that where people can even purchase your books or connect with you?
Well, my books are on Amazon and Kindle. So I usually sell from that platform. I had um, a Facebook page that was just for business and just for my books. And people are bored, so they hacked me. And it took me a year to get everything
Yeah.
almost working halfway right. But I'm still working on it. But if you go on Facebook, you will be able to contact me.
Awesome. And Donna Carey says, great job, Joyce. So that sounds like it's a personal, somebody knows you personally. Time for
Yes.
me, she says, time for me to pull the books off the shelf and read them again. That's always, that's a great compliment. I had two people say that to me once, and I'm like, wow, you would read it again? And I've heard this. I go back and read. I said, that is, as an author, people, if you ever want to know how to really make an author feel good,
Yes.
tell them that you have read their books more than once. Well, I want to say this too, Joyce. Your book is an easy read. It's insightful. It's not lowered. It's not watered down. But it's great for middle school reading and elementary school reading, because as an elementary school teacher, I used to assign chapter books, especially by third and fourth grade. A lot of the children were ready to, take it up a notch.
Right.
And these are great chapter books for
Well,
elementary students. So yes, these are great gifts. I know we have social media and people are looking at their phones or whatever, but reading has not gone out of style. It may seem like it, but it's not. So these are great gifts for young people too, because the reading is not advanced, it's relatable. Well, thank you, Joyce. Thank you. I guess we'll see each other around.
I hope so.
Vending, whatever. He says, great interview, Joyce. Congratulations. Awesome. Well, thank you everyone for joining. Remember, if you are on that YouTube end, please hit subscribe, share, and like. And if you're not and you're on Facebook, please take the time just to go to my site and hit the link to YouTube. It doesn't take more than 30 seconds as we grow the community there. Thanks again, Joyce. Thanks for being a part of tonight's broadcast. Thank you, folks, for tuning in and being patient. All right. Take care, everybody. Until next time. Take care. Bye-bye.